Hey guys, welcome back to our improvised room 151. Um, I'm going to do the kinked demand curve and marginal revenue curve stuff first, and then seems like we were very up and down on the that second game theory free response question. Some people nailed it, and some people still were a little bit off. So I'm going to make another video on that. If you think you need to watch it. If you think you figured out your mistakes based on my comments, great. If you don't care, whatever. I'll make that as a separate video, because I don't want this being like a 15-minute thing. I should probably start the timer so I know when I'm getting a little too far into it. The first two questions. Now I'm on the chapter 15 practice problem sheet, the intro sheet. That's the one I asked you to do before you watch this video. Hopefully you did. So I'm going to go through that first. The first two parts of that, I'm going to be cameramanning it myself, whatever. After that, I'm going to put it on the stand, and hopefully it won't be as bouncy or whatever. But the thing I use this old DVD holder to hold it up. It kind of blocks out the first two questions here. So here we go. So they said originally you're making 10 planes. I have no idea how much it costs to make a plane. Who cares? Go with the numbers that they give you. And you're selling those planes for $200,000 a piece, which gets you $2 million in total revenue. No idea what your costs are. We're not worried about that right now. And they said, well, what if you wanted to sell 11? Well, then you're going to have to drop the price. But you're going to have to drop the price on all of them, right? Not just the 11th one on all of them. That goes back to monopolies. So then you drop your price to $190,000 and you sell 11 and you get what? You get $2,090,000, which brings you up 90,000. All right. Again, we don't know about cost, so we're not sure if that's a great decision or not. But that's your total revenue. Then they say, what if you're going and thinking about going down one less? We'll make one less plane. Okay. Well, then we go from where we were at 10 planes earning $2 million. Now we're selling 9 planes, all 9 of which we got a little bit more of a higher price for at $205,000, and we're making $1,845,000, which means we're actually down $155,000 overall. Okay, so why is this important? It's important. Now I'm going to set this up. I think the rest of this you can get if I set that up right. Okay, so why is this important? It's important because that really tells us if I'm losing $155,000 by not making that 10th plane and selling that 10th plane. That means by selling the 10th plane, I would have been making it and selling it, I would have been getting $155,000 more. That means that my marginal revenue of that 10th plane was $155,000. Right? And the same thing applies here. This one's a little easier. My marginal revenue of the 11th, what is my marginal revenue of the 11th? Well, I went from $2 million to $2,090,000. So that means that my marginal revenue from the 11th was $90,000. Right? Why do I care about any of this? Right? Because we have to figure out what was the best decision. So they told you in the question that your marginal cost was $120,000. Right? So, should I have made that 10th plane? Well, yeah, because it cost me $120,000, but I get $155,000. So do it, man. That's a great decision. Should I make that 11th one though? Well, no, because now my marginal cost is greater than my marginal revenue or my marginal benefit. So I should make my 10th. I shouldn't make my 11th. So I should make 10. Does that decision change if now I told you the cost went up? The plane maker's contract got increased, or the price of steel or some kind of input went up, and now I think they said $140,000, right? Does that change my decision? Well, now should I still make that 10th one? Yeah, I'm still getting $155,000, and it's only costing me $140,000, so I should still do it. Should I make that 11th one though? No, I still shouldn't make that 11th one because now my marginal cost is greater than my marginal revenue, my marginal benefit. So I'm still best off making that 10th plane, but then no further. So what this means is, right, this means, did I miss anything? Marginal revenue. Okay, I think that explains it all. Right. As long as your marginal revenue is greater than your marginal cost, you want to keep doing it. But what that means in this situation is you face, and this is just a theory, just like so many other things, that you face the kinked demand curve, right? The whole idea is that you, in the airline industry or the airline production industry, you've reached a point of tacit collusion. Whatever that price, whatever that quantity is, it's kind of how you worked it out with the other airplane manufacturers, that's where you want to be at. And notice you've got a flat or more elastic section of the demand curve. You kind of want to imagine this as two different demand curves at the same time. You've got your flatter one, which would continue out, and your steeper one, which would continue up, right? What does that mean for you as the producer? It means if you try to cut your quantity and increase your price, most of the other firms are going to laugh at you and go, all right, sure, man, increase your price and more people will just come to us. So have fun with that. And if you drop your price, the other firms are going to go, well, hey, man, he's dropping his price. We're going to drop it too. So they will follow you down in a price cut, and you're not going to increase your quantity that greatly, right? They're not going to follow you up in a price increase. You'll increase your price a little bit, but it ain't going to get you that many more sales. So very elastic, very non-elastic, right? And again, guys, this is all stuff that I don't think you have to worry about for this year's exam. Next year, if you have to take this class or just for your own general knowledge, you know, when you have the full experience of a introductory microeconomics class. So what this means is if your demand curve is if your demand curve is different, if it's really two different demand curves in terms of steepness and therefore elasticity, it's going to mean you have two different marginal revenue curves, or at least portions of the marginal revenue curve. So I don't think I've said this before. Your marginal revenue curve is always going to be about twice as steep, theoretically, again, this is all theoretical, as twice as steep as your demand curve, right? And at that point of tacit collusion, where you said wink, wink, nod, nod, here's where we should be, there's a gap then in your marginal revenue curve. So if you think about it again, right? Marginal revenue versus marginal cost. Well, if you've got a vertical portion of your marginal revenue curve, what does that mean? That means a change in your marginal cost curve in any of these areas, or any of this area, and your magic spot is still what? Your magic spot still matches up to the same quantity. Whether your marginal cost is here or here or here, your magic spot is still whatever that quantity is. And when you're in tacit collusion, you're basically acting like a monopoly. So you can still jack your price up to where, as high as you can, where you hit that demand curve, right? Now, if you notice the difference between these two that I gave you, here we're flat and then more vertical, right? Here you're really flat. In fact, that almost looks like perfectly elastic. I didn't mean it to be like that, but here we're obviously flatter and more vertical, more vertically, or vertical or whatever. So what you would notice, and the reason I did that was because what that would mean is you'd have less of a vertical gap than you would here. Okay, the greater the difference in elasticity, meaning the flatter versus the more inelastic, or flatter versus more vertical, the larger that gap's going to be. Okay, so if your elasticities were closer, you'd have a smaller gap. Elasticities are greater apart, you're going to have a much larger vertical gap. Why is that important? Because it gives you a greater range of marginal costs that are going to keep you at that same point of output, right? And at that same price. So what they call this point, or what they talk about when they're talking about this point of tacit collusion, is they talk about either stickiness or sustainability. Is that what they say? It's more stable, right? So that point of tacit collusion is more stable, right? Basically saying, if we said a second ago that they're not likely to follow you up and likely to follow you down in a price increase versus a price decrease, when the elasticities are more different, it doesn't sound right, but whatever. When there's more of a greater gap discrepancy between the two elasticities, they're even less likely to follow you up and even more likely to follow you down. Okay, so really what they're saying is that point of tacit collusion, you'd be much more likely to get stuck at that point than you would be at this point. This point might at some point there might result in a change much sooner. You're much more likely to see a change in price and quantity here than you would be here. Okay, and I'm not going to get too far into it. There's a lot of theoretical stuff behind it. Basically, bottom line is if costs go down or demand goes down, cost down or demand down, you're more likely to see a stable or sticky price in either one. Okay, and just the reverse the other way, meaning they're even less likely to follow you up. They're even more likely to follow you down. So you're gonna try to stick to that point even more, and it's just the opposite the other way. Costs up, demand up, and your tacit collusion, your kind of subtle wink wink nod nod agreement is less likely to stay in place. All right. We said that about the marginal revenue always being twice as steep. Okay, this is going to be the shortest one yet, guys. And then I think, like I said, I'll post that second video in a little bit for the people who had a little bit of trouble with the game theory stuff. Again, the game theory stuff is much more important, right? So as far as your exam goes, all this stuff's important if you really want to be top scholars, but as far as the exam goes, game theory is more important. All right, so here's what you have on your paper. If it's easier for you looking there, this is not perfect, all right? In addition to being a crummy YouTuber, my sketching skills are not the greatest, but you have the Kinked ID, Kink Curve ID worksheet. Please pause the video, and now that you have a little bit of an idea of all this, I hope, give the video a try. You know, I try to identify those sections of the curves and the areas of revenue and all that, and I'll go over it in just a second. All right, so pause. Okay, let's do it. First one up. At what price and quantity have the firms in this oligopolistic industry reached the point of tacit collusion? All right, that one I hope was not too hard. Where the break is in between your two curves. All right, so in this case it would be $140 and 60 units of output. All right, wherever that break is. All right, so 140 price, quantity would be 60. What range of the kinked demand curve has a PED greater than 1? Where is it elastic? Well, it's elastic. I didn't put it in, sorry. It's elastic where it's flatter. I forgot my... Okay, so from K to B. Used to be a great toy store. Probably... You guys probably weren't even born for that. Only one that could give Toys R Us a run for its money. What range of the kink demand curve has a PED of less than 1? Okay, well, if you got that, where is it more inelastic? From B to L. And that's, you know, again, even if you weren't really that clear with the oligopoly and kinked stuff, flat, not flat. Less vertical, more vertical, however you want to say. Over what range of the kink demand curve will a price increase by one firm be ignored by the other? It's exactly the same answer. where are they going to ignore you? In the flat range, in the more horizontal or the more elastic range. Again, you increase your price here, the other firms are going to go, good move, smart ass. You're not really going to help yourself there, and they're just going to watch you lose sales. Right? They're not going to follow you. And the same is true of the next question, which says, over what range of the kink demand curve will a price decrease by one firm be matched? And you get into a price war, and that's here. Right? So again, you're not really going to help yourself. Yeah, you're going to increase sales, you're going to lower your price, but everyone's going to follow you. You're not increasing your sales that much, and you get into a price war, and it's no good. So this should show it, hopefully. What combination of letters indicates the total revenue of a firm under tacit collusion? Well, if you're in tacit collusion, we said you're here, right? So what's your total revenue? I'm making this many sales, right? And I'm getting that much each time. So it's from D to B to G to J. So it's that huge rectangle there. I don't want to color it all in right now. Well, whatever. Let me color it. Okay, so that would be your total revenue under tacit collusion. What combination of letters indicates the total revenue of a firm under tacit collusion, which decides to lower its price to 80 and increase its output to 80? Right. So you lower your price, you increase your output, but you're lowering your price. So if that was the case, at different color. Okay, so now I'm here. So I'm from C. I'm going to take that across to F. And then I would obviously take that down to H. And over here. So the blue would be what happened if I cheated, right? Which is less than the area of black. So that would be no good for me. I'm sorry. I skipped over one. It's the same idea though. What combination of letters indicates the total revenue if you were in tacit collusion and you wanted to jack up the price to 160, but you lower the quantity? What color haven't I used? Regular red. So if I go up to 160, now I'm here. Should have done a letter for that. That's A. All right, but that's going to only bring you over to E. Oh, I'm sorry, 160. I'm sticky. Well, it should have been a little higher, but whatever. You get. Let's make that. Sorry. 160 should have been a little higher. Okay, that's where you're gonna be. But again, you can see how. Yeah, it's nice and tall, but it's really thin. All right, so you got short, flat, tall, thin. The black, the original, would have been your best choice. Hopefully, you can see it more clearly on yours. Okay. So I'm just going to do this once more because I want you guys to have the correct answers. It looks a little messy there, actually. Shit, can you guys see this? Oh, son. Hold on one second. I don't know what I just hit. Okay, so here. Okay, so tacit collusion. Bam. Tacit collusion is, the point of tacit collusion is right there. You're at $140 per unit, which would be 60. Okay. K to B is your elastic range of that curve. From B to L is your inelastic range. So K to B is the region where they'll not follow you in a price increase. B to L is where they will follow you in a price decrease. Okay. If you are under tacit collusion, you're going from D to B down to J over to G. If you decided to jack up your price, okay, now you're going from A to E down to I and J. Right, so you have a much thinner area of total revenue. And if you decided to lower your price, you're going to end up with CFHG, right? CFHG. Okay, so it's a little bit of a wider, but much shorter of a box. That's a lot of letters. Okay, so that's, again, if you stick with tacit collusion, you got total revenue of DBJG. Right, if you're not getting it as I'm showing it to you because of this mess here, just look what you did up. DBJG. If you jack up the price, you're taller and thinner, much thinner, at AEIJ. And if you lower your price, you're a little fatter, but you're also very shorter, and that's CFHJ. And then this is really the important one. It says, if a firm in this situation sees its marginal cost increase from M1 to M2, all right, is that going to change your production decision? No. This is the most important part, guys, because your magic spot, right, MC equals MR, it's still equaling the same quantity, and you're still going to jack it up to the same price. All right, so anything within that break, you're sticking to that quantity and that price. How would this impact? What if it moved to MC4? Now you're going to change, because now MC4 is crossing. It looks more like at 50 units, like 50 units and like about $100. All right, if you come here, okay. If it moved to MC3, now you're just about the last point of the break, the vertical section of the marginal revenue curve, but still your magic spot stays the same, 60 at 140. Okay, so the whole idea is, then I'll wrap this one up, is that if you've reached a point of tacit collusion, they will not follow you up in a price increase, they will follow you down in a price decrease. The flatter versus the more vertical equals the bigger gap, or the longer the gap in the marginal revenue curve, which means there's more of a possibility that an increase or decrease in your marginal cost is still going to bring you to the same magic spot where marginal cost hits marginal revenue. Okay? The stickiness of that point of tacit collusion is dependent upon costs and demand. Okay? And when demand or costs go down, it's more likely that that is going to be a sticky or stable point. Demand or costs go up, and that point is more likely to change. You're more likely to break from the point of tacit collusion. All right, so for today, and I'll obviously make this due tomorrow. By the time this gets uploaded, it's going to be 3:10. Who knows when the hell this is going to get uploaded with the way my Wi-Fi has been. I'll make this due for tomorrow. This will be tomorrow's work, and that's it. And this stuff, again, this is not vital for you for this AP exam. I think you should know it anyway. What is vital is the game theory stuff, which I'm going to do right now for the people who struggle a little bit. I didn't kick it back to everybody yet. I'm sorry. I've been trying to play it fair. I've been going back and forth between you guys and the. I've been watching the research videos for the research kids today. So, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna make the video now just because I'm in video making mode. Kind of ridiculous because I'm never really that into this, but I'm gonna make the video now. I'll post it after I grade the rest of your free response questions from last year, from 2019. Like I said, some of you are fine. Some of you, I'm only like halfway through you guys, like one minor mistake, and some of you guys still got some serious problems. So base whether you want to watch the next video on my comments. You might read my comments and be like, oh yeah, stupid, got that wrong, my bad. Some of you might have been like, what, I totally thought I had it. If you're one of the ones who totally thought you had it and I'm like, no man, you don't, please watch the next video. If you figured out from the comments, great, easy. If you figured out from the comments, great. It might not hurt just to watch anyway, or just because you missed the sound of my voice. All right. Also, please start reading chapter 16. We're just about done with the stuff you need for the AP exam this year. I think chapter 16 is probably the easiest of the market structure stuff, because now you've seen everything there is to see. It's just a little bit of a difference between where the curves fall and what it shows you. And that's it. Stay healthy, and I'll either see you in the next video or I'll talk to you soon. All right. Peace out, guys.